the USS Indianapolis.
Welcome to another historical tale. This is one of the worst tragedies in US naval history. Get ready for another story from the Dork. Just after midnight on July 30th, 1945, the heavy cruiser USS Indianapolis was sailing through the Philippine Sea. The war in the Pacific was nearing its end, and the ship was on a routine trip from Guam to Leyte. But this night would be anything but routine. Without warning, 2 Japanese torpedoes slammed into its starboard side, one right under the fuel tanks. The resulting explosions were catastrophic. The mighty ship, a vessel that had served across the Atlantic and Pacific, was torn in half. It was so top-heavy with guns and armor that it began to sink almost immediately. In just 12 minutes, the USS Indianapolis rolled over. Its stern rose high into the air, and then it slipped beneath the waves, gone. Of the 1,196 sailors and Marines on board, about 300 went down with the ship. But for the nearly 900 men who made it into the water, the true horror was just beginning. They were adrift in the vast, empty ocean with few lifeboats and not enough life jackets. The initial explosion had been just the start of their ordeal. Imagine floating in the dark, the sea slicked with oil from your own ship's ruptured engines. Some men were immediately engulfed in the thick, black sludge and suffocated. As the sun rose the next day, a new enemy appeared, the relentless, scorching heat. With no fresh water, desperation set in. Men started drinking the salty seawater, a fatal mistake that led to severe dehydration, salt poisoning, and terrifying hallucinations. At night, the temperature would plummet, and hypothermia would claim more lives. Some men, driven to madness by the thirst and the horror, simply gave up and let themselves sink. Others, tragically, took their own lives. There was little hope, save for a few rations of crackers and spam found floating amongst the debris. But there was another, more primal terror lurking just beneath the surface. The sound of the explosions and the scent of blood had attracted hundreds of sharks. At first, they preyed on the dead and wounded, but soon they began attacking the living. The men could only watch, helpless, as their comrades were picked off one by one. Survivors later described seeing anywhere from a dozen to over 100 of their crewmates taken by sharks. The attacks were relentless, turning the water into a scene of unimaginable carnage. This event is now considered the deadliest mass shark attack on humans in recorded history. Poor for long days and 5 agonizing nights, the men waited for a rescue that seemed like it would never come. And here's where the tragedy compounds. The USS Indianapolis was never reported as missing. It was scheduled to arrive in Leyte Gulf on July 31st. But when it didn't show up, no alarm was raised. It was a catastrophic failure of communication. We later learned that 3 separate radio stations had actually received distress signals from the sinking ship. But one commander was drunk, another had ordered his men not to disturb him, and a third dismissed the signal as a Japanese trap. The system designed to save them had completely failed. Help finally came, but it was purely by accident. On August 2nd, 4 days after the sinking, a U.S. Navy pilot on a routine anti-submarine patrol happened to spot the oil slick and the men in the water. He couldn't believe his eyes. A massive rescue operation was immediately launched. All available air and surface units were dispatched to the scene. But by the time they arrived, only 316 men were left alive. They were severely injured, suffering from exposure, dehydration, and delirium. The greatest loss of life from a single ship in US Navy history was over. Adding a strange layer to this story is what the Indianapolis was doing just before it sank. Days earlier, it had completed a top-secret, high-speed mission. It had sailed from San Francisco to the island of Tinian, delivering a mysterious cargo. No one on board, not even the guards who watched at 24/7, knew what it was. It was later revealed to be the components for a little boy. The atomic bomb that would be dropped on Hiroshima just a week later. The ship that delivered the weapon that would help end the war met its own tragic end just days after completing its mission. In the aftermath, the US government delayed reporting the tragedy to the public until August 15th. The same day, Japan announced its surrender. They needed a scapegoat, and they found one in the ship's captain, Charles B. McVeigh III. Despite being one of the last to abandon ship and a survivor himself, McVeigh was court-martialed in November 1945. He was accused of hazarding his ship by failing to zigzag and for failing to order his men to abandon ship in time. He was convicted of the zigzagging charge. Many of his surviving crewmen defended him, stating he was not to blame. But some families of the men who died held him responsible. They sent him hateful letters, even Christmas cards that did not contain happy wishes, such as, "Our family's holiday would be a lot merrier if you hadn't killed my son." The weight of this guilt and public shame was immense. In 1968, Captain McVeigh, a man who had served his country honorably, took his own life. Some say it was loneliness after losing his wife years prior. Others say he never truly got over the loss of the men under his command. It was rumored that he was found clutching a small toy sailor he'd been given as a boy for good luck. For decades, the story of the Indianapolis was a dark chapter in naval history. But public interest was reignited in 1975. The movie Jaws featured an iconic scene where the character Quint, a shark hunter, reveals he was a survivor of the Indianapolis and gives a chilling account of the shark attacks. This brought the disaster back into the public consciousness and raised questions about the injustice done to Captain McVeigh. The fight for his name didn't stop there. In 1996, a 12-year-old student named Hunter Scott chose the sinking of the Indianapolis for a history project. His research was so thorough that it caught the attention of Congress. It was revealed that the Japanese submarine commander who sank the ship had testified that zigzagging wouldn't have made any difference. It also came out that McVeigh had requested a destroyer escort but was denied, and that the Navy knew Japanese submarines were in the area but never warned him. Finally, in 2000, the US Congress passed a resolution exonerating Captain McVeigh. A year later, the Navy officially cleared his record of all wrongdoing. It was a posthumous victory, a small measure of justice for a man who had carried an unfair burden for decades. The final chapter of this story was written in 2017. A research vessel funded by Microsoft, co-founder Paul Allen, located the wreck of the USS Indianapolis. It was found at a depth of 18,000 feet, nearly 3.5 miles down. Images of the sunken cruiser were released to the public. A ghostly and solemn reminder of the 879 men who lost their lives in the darkest days of World War II. It's a story of incredible bravery, devastating failure, and a long, hard-fought battle for the truth. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as compelling as I did, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into spooky history. See you next time.